I never thought that there wasn't supposed to be suffering, if that makes sense. So I think I was always under the impression that there's just going to be a certain element of life where terrible, terrible, terrible things could happen at any time. I didn't expect, I mean, that wasn't the only thing that happened in 2020 to me. My sister passed away from lung cancer. One of my buddies who was going to help me open the judo school died of COVID. His anniversary is coming up in about 3 days of his death. But there's a lot of wacky, my grandmother died. So all of these crazy things happened to me. And, but the whole time I felt the pain. I allowed myself to feel the pain, but I don't think I ever expected for life to not have pain. So I think for me, the reason I'm able to kind of cope and not go kooky is I kind of like, I don't know. I thought this could happen at any time. So when you're kind of like thinking to yourself, hey, there is going to be a few scoops of suffering in this life, you feel okay about it. Not okay about it, but you can cope better with it when it happens.
Yeah, that makes me think of the people that just say, well, this isn't fair. Life isn't fair. I wasn't supposed to be dealt this hand or what have you. And that almost looks like you're just looking backward instead of going, well, all right, here's what we got in front of us. How do we move along? And I think that's a major point of the mindset, you know, to be able to figure out, like, here's where I'm at. What's going on? Do you remember the movie Memento?
No.
I think it was in mid-2000s. This guy basically had like a goldfish mind where he would just remember for a couple seconds at a time. He had to be hyper aware because that's all he was. He was living in the moment. He was present. And I remember there was one time where he was running and he came to and he was like, oh shit, so I think I'm running after that guy. And he was like, oh no, fuck, he's running after me. Then he turns around because he realized, but in that moment, it took him a couple seconds to be like, where am I? What's going on? And then moving along. But it's that awareness to be able to be in that moment that I think some people just get stuck in, well, I don't like how this thing worked out. And I really want to be upset about it. Like, look, you can be upset about it. You can talk to people. You can think through this stuff, but you've got to be able to get through it. And you've got to actually call out what's going on and be mindful of it. Man, I didn't know that you've gone through as much stuff that you've gone through. That's an immense amount. And for you to be as positive as you are, I think is a testament to what you've put in place with the process that you kind of have, that you've gone through. We've scratched the surface a little bit of the processing that you've done because you've kind of given me the ends, like the bookends in a sense. This is what happened. These things happened. But in those moments where you were just not in a good headspace, how did you get yourself back?
Wow, great question. How did I get myself back? Well, I got very into my faith. I started reading a lot about God, about spirituality, which always has helped me, even prior to all the 2020 stuff that was happening. And what I tried to do was just really think, you know, I have a lot of blessings too. There was a lot of things that I had to be joyful for in my life. And I didn't want the sorrow and the circumstances that affected me in 2020 to have a negative impact on the happy parts of my life. I wanted to be able to accept the bad parts, feel the pain from the bad parts, but I also wanted to be in a good enough space to feel good about the good parts. So what I did was I started to get into my faith, and not just my faith. I started just reading about religion in general. I was reading this one book called The Tanya, where I was listening to a lecture on it, which is in Orthodox Judaism. I'm Christian, but I'll study anything. And that helped me out a lot. I was listening to lectures on that. And then I started to get very creative. I started to try to express myself more and get into some of the goals that I had in life, which is what ultimately ended up leading to me starting a podcast with my co-host Chris Sykes. So the summer of 2021 was kind of like when things simmered down, and I was like, look, you only live once.